Do you have any announcements?
Mayor, I would like to make a public statement on behalf of our entire council, our city staff, and the citizens of Prescott about how sad we are about and so sorry for your great loss to your family with your beautiful Brooklyn. So we just want you to know how much we love you, how much we love your family, and that we, the entire city of Prescott, is here for you.
Thank you, Billy. I appreciate that. You know, our family has been overwhelmed with a lot of love and support and prayers, and we appreciate all that. It's been very, very helpful during this time, so thank you. All right, thank you, Billy. We're going to have an invocation by Pastor Craig Hepp with Hillside Community Church of God and Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Blair.
Father God, today I pray, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. I pray for President Trump, for our Vice President Pence, for the COVID-19 task force, for our Prescott City Council and local business leaders. I especially pray for Mayor Mangarelli and his extended family as they grieve over the loss of their daughter, Brooklyn. I lift up the needy of Prescott, the poor, the homeless, the hopeless, those who are currently out of work and without pay, for business owners who have had to close and are generating no income. I pray for our healthcare professionals at Ground Zero, staring this virus right in the face. I pray for the clerks, the cashiers, the truckers, the police, our firemen, working diligently to keep the essentials going. We pray for their protection. We pray for those who have tested positive for the virus. We pray for families that will be strengthened during this time of togetherness. And we pray for those without families, that they will not feel isolated or alone. And Father, we ask for your kingdom to come, for all that we've mentioned, and may the church also rise up and your spirit be evident to all. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. So please call roll.
Mayor Mangarelli.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr.
Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Councilman Blair.
Yes.
Councilman Good.
Here.
Councilmember Rusing.
Present.
Councilwoman Scholl.
Here.
And Councilman Sischka.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you for that. All right. Let me do a quick COVID-19 update before Mark and Robin share some economic impacts with us, budget impacts. As of a little while ago, when we got the update from Yavapai County Health, we have 70 positive test results. 1,700 people have been tested. Yesterday, when I looked at the data, I think we're getting 4% positive from those tests at this point. So that went from 5 to 4%. There's a lot of good information on the county website with all the numbers. Yesterday, we had 13 positive cases in Prescott. So a lot of data there. I would encourage folks to go to the Yavapai County website to get more information. Friday, we're going to have a virtual town hall meeting for mental health and faith-based resources. That'll be at 1 o'clock. That is on Zoom. Everyone's becoming more familiar with what Zoom is. And so you can get that link from the city or my social media sites. We'd love to have you tune in to get those resources out to the public. Yavapai mental and public health agencies have come together to support the community amid the crisis. The collaborative campaign launched through the Yavapai Justice and Mental Health Coalition is titled Yavapai Stronger Together. The message mental health providers and agencies want to share with law enforcement, treatment providers, government officials, school leaders, and families is that there are a variety of resources available. So you can check out the website, justicementalhealth.com, and there's a hashtag Yavapai Stronger Together. We did hear from Leslie Horton, the health director here in the county, that we're in need of medical reserve corps volunteers. So if you have a healthcare first responder background and would like to help extend the work of Yavapai County Community Health Services, contact them at 928-442-5487. I think that's for the most part. I again would just encourage folks, if you have questions, to go to Yavapai County website, and they have all the information there.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I'd just like to give an update on YRMC.
Yeah, good.
Currently, there are 3 people with COVID-19 in the YRMC system. That's covering East Campus in Prescott Valley and West Campus here in Prescott. So there's 3 total. And there's 10 what they call PUIs, which is persons under investigation, on the West Campus, and 3 PUIs on the East Campus. Now, a PUI is anybody who has been taken into the hospital for any reason who's been given a COVID-19 test. So that doesn't mean that they suspected them of having COVID-19. They just mean that it just means that they tested them for that. So we're really looking good at YRMC.
Yeah, thank you for that, Steve. And I've talked to John Amos a number of times. The hospital is way ahead on this. They have lots of extra bed space that they have prepared in the event that there would be a surge. With no electives at this time, they have lots of beds available. I don't have a number on that, but I know the ER at one point I'd heard was like down by 30%. So we're finding that whether it's the ER or physicians, the numbers are down because people don't want to go into those places right now and necessarily be exposed. But John Amos and YRMC have done a great job, and they've been a great partner preparing for the crisis. So Thank you.
One thing, Mayor.
Yeah.
As you might know, that some of our factories are shut down as well. So we have one factory that's in Georgia that has switched to producing non-surgical masks. And so what they have done is they've gone to all the dealers in window covering world and asked them and made available 100 masks per dealer. So I have 100 masks in case the chiefess need to have non-surgical masks. I have 100 masks that will be here on Thursday that have been shipped from Carroll's Interiors out of Georgia.
Oh, good. Thank you. Anything else from the council?
Mayor, I just had something I'd asked, and we have this internally, as everyone talks about a flattening of a curve. This is the case volume in Yavapai from 315 through present. And as you can see, the curve is flattening. So the measures that people are taking are impacting it. You can see we haven't had a spike in the better part of, what would you say?
April 1 might
Yep.
be kind of,
Yep.
yeah.
We reached almost a peak or a plateau. So I just thought graphically it would be good for the public to see this is what's happened.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful, Michael, because, as I've watched this, there have been some days it's been 0, as we can see, and other days 1 or 2. And so, but to see that graph, you can kind of see how flat it is, and hopefully we're beyond a peak. We'll see, but that looks very encouraging. Thank you. Anything else from the council on that? Okay. We'll move on to item B on the agenda.
Discussion regarding potential budget impacts from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mark Woodfill, Budget and Finance Director, City of Prescott. About 45 days ago, I was standing in front of you giving the mid-year budget presentation. Things have changed a little bit in the last 45 days for sure. Putting this together today, I wanted to come up with a few graphs. I have 3 graphs that I've taken from different presentations I've seen over the last little bit to give Council an idea of the magnitude of this event, if you will. So looking here, if we look, this was the 2008-2009 recession. That was the largest job loss in history for a global financial crisis, and it was at 800,000. March, as you can see looking here, was 701,000 job loss already, and that was the fourth biggest ever in history. And the big red line is the projection for April at close to 15 to 20 million job loss. The sheer magnitude of this, this unprecedented event is just enormous. Trying to come up with what the economic impact is very challenging. As we look at this graph here, this is the last 40 years. It shows all the recessions in nice gray bars there. And as you can see, looking at these early recessions, as the recession starts, the blue line is jobless claims. The recession starts, they're low, it goes to high, low to high, low to high. This, of course, is the big peak that we were just talking about during the '08 recession. These almost hard to see numbers over here are the new recession, which we're in now, and the jobless claims, which are way up here already. Again, unlike other recessions, the jobless claims are leading this recession, or definitely adding to it. We were headed towards a recession before this, but definitely in the middle of a recession now as we look at these huge jobless claims. So how does that play against the GDP, gross domestic product of the United States? Here's 100 years of GDP. You can see our various recessions, the more significant ones as you go out. Of course, here is the Great Depression, which was in the early 1930s time frame. And then you have this, which is a projection of the GDP for this second quarter of 2020. And this projection has actually been reduced to show the impact of the stimulus bill that was just passed. So it would have been more around the range of negative 50% growth in GDP. Very significant numbers. So all that said, to try to project what is going to happen to the city's revenues as we go forward from this is extremely challenging, because we don't even know when the economy is going to essentially open up again. But I did want to go through a few things, but please interrupt me if you have any questions. So immediately when this started, the city management took action. We stopped all employee travel for training. This reduced employees' exposure to the virus. It also kept employees in town so they were able to cover shifts and meet the public demands. There's minor financial savings, but mainly it was for the other reasons. We froze all capital projects in our tax funds, which were not already underway. This is significant. We'll talk about it in a couple more slides of what that does and what that allows us to do as we move into the next fiscal year. And currently there is a hiring freeze. Any vacant positions need to be authorized by the city manager before they can be posted. Of course, this provides latitude. It provides some cost savings, but also, depending on the length of this, depending on how long the economy's down, if we have to adjust service levels or move employees around or positions around, it gives us a little latitude to do that. So which funds is this going to impact? And again, this presentation is not intended to be a budget presentation. Obviously, too many unknowns to really make that useful. So I want to talk about the funds that this is going to impact. So this graph, or this chart here, schedule, shows the tax revenues in each of our major funds. General fund, of course, the primary fund of the city for public safety. It also funds airport capital projects, which Robin is going to talk about at the end of this. Golf course and golf course capital projects, any of the public safety things. 82% of that fund comes from taxes. Looking at the taxes, of course, we have our local sales tax, which is 42% of that, very significant, going to be where we see a big impact. Our property tax is only about 4% of that. Property tax is a little more sheltered from these type of events, although it can be impacted through defaults, but it's primarily set at a levy, so you will collect that. Utility franchises, of course, is an additional fee on utilities. That's a little more stable, doesn't fluctuate quite as much as, hotels and restaurants and other things. The utilities are what they are. Then we have our share of the state revenues. State sales tax, of course, gets to be very, fluctuating again. Vehicle license tax will probably be relatively stable through 21. However, there will be impacts from this recession for the next 3 or 4 years in vehicle license because people aren't buying new vehicles. Vehicles get older, the license fee goes down, the city's share of that goes down. We'll see some of it in 21, but you're going to see more of it in 22 and 23 as this drags on. State income tax, fortunately, in 21, that will be stable because there's a 2-year lag on how that is collected. The tax we receive in 21 was paid by taxpayers in 19. So we know exactly what that's going to be. What does that mean? It means 21 will be good for stability, but 22, 23 are going to be down because, of course, that lag will eventually catch up to us. We also need to be careful of the state legislature, just as a matter of practice in the last several recessions, whenever they're putting their budget together and they see all this money going to states, when their income receipts are down, they go, well, that's not fair. We need that. Again, they're not taking into account that 2-year lag, and they always try to use that for something. And of course, we fight for it every time and have been successful. Another fund, which is even more significantly impacted, except that it doesn't deal with our basic services, is our streets fund. Of course, streets is basic services, but it's more capital, so more of a delay. But 94% of that fund is tied to taxes. Again, local taxes represent so much of what we do here. $47 million of our budget comes from local taxes. So, and in this case, HERF, which is our share of the gas tax, is another big funding source in that fund. And of course, that's going to be significantly impacted, in my opinion, because nobody's going to work, nobody can go anywhere, nobody can drive, even though gas is below $2 a gallon. You still can't go anywhere, so you're not using gas. And this is all based on the volume of gas used. Of course, our tourism fund is percentage-wise is going to be one of the biggest hits, in my opinion. You're going to see we've been doing great. We have about 1.1 million budgeted in 21. We're not going to get that, obviously, and the projections for next year are going to be less as well. And our public safety unfunded liability fund, of course, will be impacted as anything with the sales tax. How much, that's to be seen. It's more of a long-term fund, so hopefully this year slow, next 5 years will be higher. We'll still be able to reach the goal of council as we get to that. Looking at our local taxes, which, as I mentioned, about $48 million, it's important to remember where that tax comes from, what industries pay into that tax. General merchandise and food stores is a huge part of the city's tax base. And, you think about it, yeah, Prescott Valley has a Fry's and they have a Safeway, but, Prescott has 2 Fry's and 2 Safeways and a Costco and 2 Walmarts, and we have a lot of those general merchandise stores that add to our tax base here, which is good. It gives us a little more stability compared to restaurants and hotels, but they are going to be impacted as well as we look at this. Obviously, if people don't have jobs, they are buying less. Motor vehicle is another big part of our tax base, 15%. Obviously, that's going to be down significantly, even hard to even tell, in my opinion, until you start getting numbers, but I would not be surprised to see that down 60, 70%. Construction, that's going to be a lag, in my opinion, and the slowdown there. The work is being done now, but people are going to stop buying houses as they see their 401ks plummet through the ground and they're not going to be moving. So you'll probably see some slowness in that in 21. Utilities, again, more stable, not a huge part of our tax base, only 5%. And hotel and restaurants are going to be significantly impacted. Some reports that getting from the tourism office, hotel revenues are down over 80%. Restaurant is probably comparable with no dining facilities. I'm sure you're seeing that out there. Residential rental and commercial rentals are usually pretty stable, but of course, if people quit paying rent, there's no tax on no payments, so we could see some slowness there as well. Allergies. Yeah. as we look at this, I think the important point is, as we talked about 45 days ago, when the world was normal, before we went down this rabbit hole, if you will, we're going to look at the calendar, and we have time. Right now, there's a lot of unknowns. We don't know when the economy's open. We don't know what it's going to do to our tax base. We don't know what the needs are and how tightly we're going to be able to squeeze the budget. All that is happening right now. Not to get anybody too depressed, but we do have some good news. Looking at our fund balances, and these are important. Obviously, as revenues are down, you still need to put police on the street and firemen in fire trucks. We have some reserves in our fund balance, but in the general fund, our policy is 20%, which we've talked about whether that's too low. Probably is, but it's better than 10%. 20% is only 5 weeks. It's 10 weeks. It's about 50 days, about 10 weeks, less than 2.5 months. Fortunately, with the freezing of capital projects, we've been able to have another 10% of our annual expenditures in an unassigned fund balance because those projects weren't done. They were deferred. They're projects that don't need to happen immediately and can be put off to be used for these more critical needs. So that gives us close to 30% kind of in an available fund balance, which is good. We've also identified some reserves for some capital things that are needed, some of Robin's projects and things like that, which she'll be talking about. So there is some good news. We have some latitude as we put this budget together. We're going to be looking at that. We're going to be bringing that forward. Streets fund, same way. There's $7.7 million there. That isn't enough to do the full 5-year plan, looking at revenue projections, but it's pretty good. Tourism fund hit much harder, obviously, projected right now at only 190,000. We're going to have to be looking at what we're going to do for grants there next year. What programs are we going to have to stream down there? All that said, I put this up from our 45-day ago discussion. We're here at the middle of May when we're meeting with the individual departments and telling them no a lot. City manager and I are making a lot of friends in these meetings. But we need to bring you a revised budget downward. And even though this is an unusual and unprecedented economic event, we're going to budget for it and we're going to prepare for it like we do every other uncertain event, whether it's another recession, whether it was 9/11, all the other things. We're going to have a lot of contingencies in this budget. There might be a capital project that we really want to do, but we can't. We're going to make it a contingency. If revenues recover, halfway through the year, we look at revenues recovered, we move forward with that capital, whether it's replacing police cars or doing whatever. There'll be a lot of contingencies. You're going to, unfortunately for you guys, see me a lot more this next year as we do revenue updates for you throughout the year to let you know how these revenues are actually coming in. The budget workshop that we have for May 19th and May 26th, if necessary, is going to focus primarily on revenue loss and how we're cutting the budget and what contingencies we're putting out there and what's important to council to see in those contingencies. So it is going to be, less of a positive, this is what we want to achieve next year, and more of a this is what we have to get done next year. This is what we have to cover. But it's good. We have time for this. Hopefully by May 19th, we'll have a few more knowns is when the economy is going to open, maybe how it's going to open, not what that does, but we will definitely get through this. We will have these contingencies. We've been in difficult, uncertain times before. We know how to budget for it and plan for it. Department heads know how to manage their departments through it. So again, between fund balance and the experience of your department heads, I think there's a lot of positives. One thing that we talked about 45 days ago, which I would like to revise, I know we talked about by no means do we want to increase the property tax levy, no way, no how. I would suggest at this point that I go ahead and post the notice on our website that the council may consider a property tax increase as part of the 21 budget process. This does not mean you have to do it. but it does give you that latitude as we go through the May 19th and May 26th budget sessions that you say, it's really tighter than we thought. That 150,000 is one less cop we have to furlough. That type of thing. It gives you more latitude. It doesn't mean you're going to do it right now. It would be something we would do on the June 23rd meeting or the July 7th if council moves forward. But it would all be part of that discussion in May. So with that, I'd be glad to answer whatever questions I can, but there's a lot of unknowns.
Well, thank you, Mark. That 150,000 on the property tax looks a whole lot different today than it did 45 days ago.
Everything looks different
yeah.
than it did 45 days ago.
I would like to say that was a good report. It's not a good report. You did a good job.
Thank you.
Reporting what is out there. I think those jobless claims and the GDP are a couple things I was kind of weighing heaviest on me in terms of what this looks like for our future. But I appreciate the fact that you guys have been through some of these times before. You've been around here a few years and know how to navigate some of this stuff. So appreciate.
And that GDP is one quarter, and that's again very scary.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Projections I'm seeing from different economists, and these slides came from Jeff Lowe's, the chief economist at FHN Financial, who's very on the ball. At this point, they're showing a projected GDP reduction for calendar year 20 at around 4% by the time we hit the end of the year. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, as the economy comes back open, you're going to see a big positive, and then you're going to get income losses, and it's going to go down again. But hopefully, it will be 4 or 5% negative for the year, not 30.
Very good. Is this Councilman Sishka?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. Mark, what kind of conversations are you having in the financial world about the fact that a normal recession is market-driven, and this recession is basically government-driven, basically forcibly shutting down businesses? What is the difference that you've talked about, and how quickly do you think that we can get back to normal, seeing as though it is a forcibly shut down economy versus a market-driven?
This is recorded, and we will hold you to it.
Yes, that's fine. It's interesting. I mean, government-driven or service sector, the closing of that sector, jobs leading this recession, if you will, as opposed to trailing it. It's challenging because you'd like to think it'll open June 1st and just swing back, but it's not going to, because you have 10 million people out of work. Yep. You have 20 million people at work probably by then. Those jobs aren't just going to snap back. There's going to be a lot of businesses that don't recover from this. This is going to impact the economy for decades as far as putting a shadow over it. Those ones that can snap back, how much are they going to be willing to invest, knowing that there might be a relapse of the virus in the fall? There's just so many unknowns. And for us in government, there's unknowns, but for somebody in business who's running on the ragged edge, as a lot of small businesses do, there's even more unknowns. So again, I think the 4 or 5% negative for the GDP for the year is a pretty good estimate. Unfortunately, we'd love to see it back above 0 for the year as a whole, but I don't think you're going to get there. I think, like I say, the businesses are not going to snap back as quick as you think. People are not going to run out and buy a new car as soon as the economy turns around, because their 401s have dropped 30%. That's not, a lot of people, I'm not saying I'm one of them, probably am, think that the equity market hasn't fully acknowledged this. They continue to be surprised when Ford says we're going to have losses in the next quarter. I mean, I wouldn't think that would be a surprise, but every time those happen, you see the market go down. I think you're going to see a lot more down market in the equity market this year than up, even from here. But so it's not going to be a sharp recession recovery, in my opinion. Probably more of a U, maybe a W, as they say. It come up, it'll go down, it'll come up. It's going to last a while. And again, this will have a shadow over the economy for a decade.
Thank you.
Yeah, on those jobless claims, I've been reading the same kind of thing that, those jobs do not come back quickly, which is why they passed the Paycheck Protection Program, which I'm not typically for that kind of government intervention. Yet they're trying to keep those people on payroll so that when there is something happening in the economy, hopefully they can keep them, into the summer. But that's yet to be seen.
Yeah. No, it's all good. Like I say, it kept that negative from being even more negative on this
Right.
graph.
Right. Councilmember Rusi.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for your comprehensive comments there. I guess you've impressed upon me that we're up here and we have to ask ourselves now when we make a decision for funding, is this a want or is it a need? And we're going to have to do some belt tightening. And I would also like to ask you, do you foresee us having to lay off any city employees?
Well, that we can defer to the manager. That's always a last resort. Obviously, we've very limitedly ever had to do that. We strive to curtail elsewhere, but
Councilmember Rusing, it's always been my philosophy, and I think I share this with Mark, that replacing quality human capital is harder than almost anything else. So when you go through a recession like we went through from 08 through 13, 12,
yeah,
you make hard decisions, and sometimes you have to do that. But there are other things that should come first. And part of that is just a human moral responsibility, but the other part is the cost of retraining people. When you lose institutional knowledge because you've laid people off, as Mark alluded to about this whole recession situation, it takes a while to recover that. So it's not off the table. I think a lot of what we're debating in our minds is this is an unprecedented event because we've never had a public health crisis stop the economy. I agree with Mark. I think big ticket items are going to go slow, but I do think initially there's going to be a pent-up demand to get the heck out of the house. I think you're going to see a lot more driving travel, which may help us because I think a lot of people are going to be reticent to get on an airplane for a while. But all these things are going to take a while to know what the impact really is. And as Mark alluded to, we're going to have to come in front of you probably monthly or every other month to say, these are the trends we're seeing with discretionary spending. Because there really isn't something they look back historically that's exactly like this. So,
Just one comment. I've heard from 3 different people today. I think probably more so than anything is the fact that it's going to slow our construction world down. When you look at 3 of the people I talked to today, they were in the midst of buying a house, and one of their spouses loses their job. So now all of a sudden, the closing of their house is at bay with their financial institution, which is unfortunate. But on the other hand, I have never seen, as long as I've been up here, the government step in and offer up $600 a week plus $240 a week from the state, where people that are unemployed are making $840 a week too. So when you start talking about the environment collapsing, that's not necessarily a fatal thing that we have going on right now. So it may hold the shingle up a little bit and be able to give people some satisfaction of being able to be on unemployment for a little while and getting a job back. I noticed today on my feed I had 15 different jobs that are available in Prescott, Arizona. It's not Armageddon as far as I'm concerned. It's bad. There's no doubt it's bad. But I think that we've been through bad times before, so the more resilient we are, and the sooner we unleash our economy. I think at this point in time, the mayor alluded to it, and so did Steve, that the number of things that are not happening in Yavapai County. We're not in New York. We're not in California. We're a different animal, and we need to be treated as a different animal from state to state. And to allow us to bring back our environment of our economy is probably a good thing based upon a very systematic approach of which people that the governor allows to reopen because people are suffering out there in a big way.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have anything at this point?
Yes, I do. I was watching on Facebook that private way sounds better, so I had sooner, and I know we're all on the call with the government office, sooner we can get back to where we were as far as opening up. I hope that we're one of those areas that we're doing such a great job, that we're one of those cities that's going to be able to be on the first end of the road to open up. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we're going to hold on to this the way that we are now, and that we'll be able to open our city a little sooner.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anything else from the council before we go to? Are you?
Yeah, I'm done. I was just going to tell you, I'll see you in 35 days. Who knows what'll happen? But okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And Robin has some things on some airport good news.
Great. Great.
Good afternoon, Council. Robin Sabata, Airport Director. So City Manager Lamar asked me if I could come and give you a briefing on some breaking developments that occurred earlier today. As many of you know, there was a CARES Act passage, of course, on March 27th, and we've been watching that because we had heard that nearly $10 billion would be available to U.S. airports, and this would be specifically for helping them continue operations. The funds are going to be available for keeping airports in reliable, safe operation and helping the industry to keep airport and aviation workers employed and to keep airport credit ratings stable. Just to give you an idea what these are about, these are actually not Airport Improvement Program grants like I've come to you before with. These are actually appropriated from the U.S. General Fund and not from the Airport and Airway Trust Fund. The FAA intends to award these funds on an expedited basis, and they want us to spend these funds quickly. In fact, it does appear that they want us to try to spend them in months or even weeks if we can. So get out there quickly. There are a few strings. One of them is a workforce retention requirement for the airport itself. Large, medium, and small hub airports must maintain 90% of their employees during this time period. And the funds that are being awarded are available for any purpose for which airport revenues may be lawfully used. So what we're looking at is it can be a variety of things from airport operating expenses, maintenance of the airport development. If you do use it on a new project, it just has to meet the requirements for environmental and other types of requirements associated with National Environmental Policy Act. So they're pretty flexible funds. And drum roll, please, what we were awarded this morning was $1,042,532. It will be issued in the next 2 weeks. So we will be getting that very quickly. And City Manager Lamar and I have been working together on the list of items, but primarily it will be used for the terminal project, which we're really excited about. In addition, we've been invited to apply for what is equivalent to a 5% match on the new terminal project, which would be another $526,315 if that is indeed approved. And the third benefit of this act is that our taxiway Charlie relocation project, which is between a $14 and $15 million project due to start in August, will be 100% federally funded. There is no local match, which is equivalent to another $350,000 to $400,000 in a match we don't have to produce. So I'm coming to you with good tidings equivalent to roughly $1.5 to $2 million that'll eventually make it our way. Also, I have requested that our 1920, our federal year fiscal year 21 entitlement be allocated to the terminal building as a reimbursement to the city. So the good news is that's getting to be a much more economical project by the minute. So we wanted to bring you a little bit of good news. In 2 weeks, we'll be coming back to the council to formally accept this money and give you an idea of where the allocations will be. There's some other good things here, and that is it does keep folks employed. The airport is continuing to operate. The construction project is underway. It's considered an essential service. So we're about 3 weeks behind because of the rain and the snow, a little bit that set it behind. So we are still looking at opening the new terminal in March of 2021. So we're on track for that.
Well, that's a good reason to be behind, honestly. We've had a lot of moisture, and so that's okay.
Yes. We've had a cessation in the LA flight. We still have the Denver flight daily. We're running about 10 to 20% load factors on that. They are bringing the LA flight reportedly back on May 4th, so we should be having the Denver and the LA flight daily. And they still have, in August, the second Denver flight added back to the schedule, which they had expected it would have its summer hiatus and be coming back online. And so that does appear to be on track. And they are cleaning the carrier every day, more than anybody knows. And they've even got a new fogging device that they use every night for the planes. So I'm hopeful people will continue to want to use the carrier in the near future when they feel comfortable.
Yeah, very good. Well, this is good news. I appreciate you finding these revenue sources. It's very, very helpful. I know just with our $3.5 million that we dedicated to this project, it'd be nice if not all of that necessarily had to come out of the general fund. So that'll be very helpful. Appreciate that.
We appreciate your support as well. And Mayor Pro Tem Orr was at a meeting and advocating for us. And I'd like to thank her as well for the work that she did to help us with that extra money for the terminal that we just found out this week was available. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Senator Sinema was on that call, right? She's been pretty helpful.
Very helpful. Yeah. In fact, they've been tracking our funding all the way through, and so it's really nice to have that level of support.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem, I sense you would like to say something.
Hey, I'd like to say that was a really great call to be able to make to Robin and to Michael Lamar to give them that message. So it was good.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. Okay, Councilmember Rusey.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you, Robin, for staying on top of things and working with our other elected officials on the federal level to bring some of our tax dollars home to us. And I also wanted to ask about Embry-Riddle, if there's any updates, any information, news. I know they don't have the touch and go. They've canceled their flight line.
Yes, that has been suspended for at least a month. They are anticipating coming back full-fledged in the fall, which is in August. And indeed, October West is still on, and they say it may be one of the biggest events that they're planning. They're moving their graduation to the October West weekend so that the folks can come back in. And so I think it's going to be a replenishment of tourists later in the season, and hopefully they'll be filling our hotel rooms.
Okay, because Embry-Riddle's such an asset to the community.
They are.
Thank you.
Very good. Anybody else on the council? Oh, Michael.
One additional point. Robin shared with me that there's some cameras that show the ongoing progress of the terminal.
Yes.
If any of you would like links to that, because I know we're all kind of looking for things to do that are interesting. She probably could provide those to you as well.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
We are actually going to be flying steel, as it's referred to, which means putting the first steel beams in the ground the week of the 20th. So it's coming up very quickly. You're going to start to see the structure take shape very, very soon.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank
Great
you.
report. Thanks, Robin. All right, let's move on to items. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, we did receive one public comment. in
Oh,
regards
yeah.
to this
Go ahead.
item.
Sorry.
It is from Ralph Hess. And he stated, I anticipate this presentation demonstrates the City of Prescott budget is likely to be significantly impacted by the loss of sales tax revenues due to public compliance with local, state, and national stay-at-home and physical distance directives. And elected officials will once again be presented with the same dilemma they face every time we experience a financial recession: how to maintain public service levels while suffering reduced sales tax revenues. The laments repeated by elected officials and staff in the midst of following each financial recession are, like it or not, cities in Arizona are heavily reliant on sales tax, and the capacity to generate additional revenue from property tax is limited by state law. Like every city in Arizona, our general fund is overly dependent upon sales tax. Yet every time local elected officials decide additional revenues are needed to meet community needs following and between recessions, they always seek increases in sales tax rather than seek to change Arizona law to provide more diversified revenue sources. When will you mobilize your legal department, lobbyists, and staff to seek the cooperation of other local elected officials, i.e. the League of Arizona Cities and Towns, Yavapai County Board of Supervisors, and County Supervisors Association, in efforts to amend Arizona laws to provide more and fairer revenue sources for local communities to meet their public service needs?
All right. Thank you for that. Let's move on to item C, please.
Approval of minutes for the March 24th, 2020 voting meeting.
Any comments, changes with the minutes? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve city council minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Please vote.
Mayor, would you like me to do a roll call since Mayor Pro Tem is not present, or do you want to have everybody vote on the board and then we can just ask for her vote?
I voted.
Oh, is that yours? We can do a voice. I hadn't really thought about that till just now.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll just
that's
do it
fine.
the same way that I did at last meeting. Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr? And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Okay. Thank you for that. Let's move on to item D, please.
Adoption of Resolution 2020-1739, approving city contract number 2020-176, an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Prescott and the Town of Prescott Valley for the joint purchase and use of an incinerator for disposal of drugs and evidentiary items.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm submitting today for your approval intergovernmental agreement for the joint purchase and use of a drug incinerator to incinerate our prescription drugs and narcotic evidence drugs that we take in from our Dump the Drugs program and during the course of criminal investigations. Our current incinerator is no longer serviceable, and it hasn't been for about 6 months. The cost to the city for this incinerator will be $15,375 plus the cost of installation that will be done by the Town of Prescott Valley Public Works. We've agreed to fund this project out of Public Works enterprise funds. I'd like to entertain any questions that you might have.
Okay. Thanks, Lieutenant. Questions, comments from the council?
I have one. Question. Where have we been incinerating these things? Has it been out at the VA center as it used to be, or?
No, we had an incinerator that was out at our police shooting range.
Okay.
Since that incinerator is no longer serviceable, I have about 600 pounds of prescription and narcotic drugs in our evidence at this time.
Where is it planned to be located?
It's going to be at the Prescott Valley Police Department. They currently have the same situation we have. Their incinerator is located on their PD property, but it's not serviceable.
Okay. So it's going to be a brand new
Brand new.
facility, and its estimated use. How long is the livelihood of this incinerator?
It all depends on how often we use it. We're purchasing a larger incinerator than what we had, so about 3 times larger. So the number of times we burn will be less, and we've gotten about 15 to, I think it was 16 or 17 years out of the one that we had.
Thank you for that information. Appreciate it.
Other questions, comments? Councilmember Roosing?
Thank you. I just wanted to say it's a great idea. I'm glad to see us cooperating with our neighbor Prescott Valley and pooling our resources and saving the taxpayers some money. I know I had a question as to why we weren't partnering with the county, and I guess they have a whole different system, so that wasn't a possibility. And so it sounds like a necessity, great thing to do. And I just have one question. It's going to be oil fired. Is that more economical, or why is it oil fired versus natural gas or
More readily
LP?
accessible, and Prescott Valley again, since it's on their facility, they're not plumbed for natural gas. That would be an additional expense that
Okay.
Basically it's the easiest way to get this thing going, and we're all filled to the brim with drugs in our evidence room. So,
All righty. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments from the council? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 2020-1739, approving city contract number 2020-176.
Second.
We have a motion and second, and we'll take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Aye.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
All right. Let's move on to item E, please.
Adoption of resolution number 2020-1740, declaring a temporary moratorium on enforcement of certain land development code sign provisions.
Mayor and council, I think it was a meeting ago, there was some discussion about allowing temporary signage to be put up to help our local businesses that are suffering during this time of COVID-19 shutdown. I believe Councilman Good had brought up some other communities in Arizona that looked like this. Matt did his due diligence in terms of realizing that I had the ability to act under the emergency order immediately to make this a reality. This would ratify that decision. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I think it was Councilman Good at the last meeting brought to the council the idea that maybe with the extenuating circumstances with the crisis and especially restaurants needing to advertise takeout, curbside delivery, that would be a good idea to do this. So I appreciate you moving quickly, Michael, and this is just to ratify, like you said, that decision. Any questions, comments from the council? Councilman Good?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think since hopefully this will be a temporary situation with many of our small businesses that are doing their best to try to stay open and maintain some revenue, requiring them to abide by the sign codes and city right-of-way, et cetera, is at least a small thing we can do to support letting them know that we do support as much as we can their continuing operation and letting the public know that they're trying to do their best to stay open and stay operating so that some of these CARE Act employee benefits will be able to be applied. One of my concerns, just like Councilman Blair was saying, is that with the vast amount of unemployment applications and then the additional bonuses, so to speak, that the federal government and the state is applying to them, it's critical to keep as many employees employed in those facilities so that when some of these restrictions are relieved, we can resurrect, so to speak,
It's a good
their
word.
businesses, right?
Yeah.
So I understand it's going to expire when these restrictions expire, right? So I've been approached by a couple of different people saying, why don't we do some additional things right now? And I said, we have the restrictions of the president's emergency orders, the authority of the governor's emergency orders. We also still have that provision where any legislator who believes that we are acting contradictory to government statutes can challenge our ability to do something like that and immediately have our share of revenue suspended until the Attorney General reviews that. So we don't want to either underreach or overreach. Right. And we want to make sure that when we do something like this, it is within our authority as a city to do as much as we can, but not put further pressure on our small businesses. So I think it's a minor thing, but it does send a good signal to our community that we're going to do as much as we can to help them survive this horrible situation. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Good. He brings up a good point. So this will expire when? What will be the trigger exactly?
Good afternoon, Matthew Pedracki, interim city attorney, at least for another week, as I understand it. We'll see if John gets back safely. It is tied to your withdrawal of the city's proclamation of emergency.
Oh, okay.
So that's part of how we do emergency proclamations. They last until such time as you, as mayor, withdraws the proclamation.
Okay. So we won't have to come back and rescind this action. It'll just be pulling the emergency order.
Right. It has its own sunset clause tied to the withdrawal of the proclamation.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. Good points, Councilman Good. And I think the other thing to mention to the public, and they've probably seen this, but in addition to allowing the extra signage, Public Works was very helpful early on to put up signs in parking spaces around the city for curbside 15-minute pickup. So that was also something we could do that would be helpful. Councilmember Roosing.
In that same vein, I would like to thank the City Council and the city, especially Parks and Recs, for keeping our parks and trails open, because I've been out on them, and they've been wonderful, I think, therapy. They're busy, people are being careful, they're socially distancing, and it's wonderful for our mental health, because I was speaking to my brother who lives in England, and they've closed the golf courses in the parks, and they can't go out, and it's killing them because the weather's beautiful there. So I just want to say thank you for us being kind of cognizant of our community and what works for us. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions, comments from the council?
Mayor, I had an additional question. Will this apply to the political signage, no sign zones in the arteries, the main arteries?
Good question.
City Attorney?
No, but it will apply to, let's say, downtown businesses. You'll recall a few years ago, this became an issue where commercial zones wanted to put in more than one sign within their windows downtown. So it may alleviate some of that congestion, but it won't affect our ability to keep signs out of our right-of-way. That still remains.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the council, or any public comment?
No public comment, Mayor.
All right, we'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, move to adopt resolution number 2020-1740.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Let's take a vote.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr? Yes. And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passed 7-0.
All right, thank you for that. Let's move to item F, please.
Adoption of resolution number 2020-1741, granting a waiver to the Arizona Department of Transportation to turn back a portion of Deep Well Ranch Road to the city of Prescott.
Hello, Mayor, Council. Craig Dodseth, Public Works. So this item, first item I have today is in regards to approving a resolution granting a waiver to Arizona Department of Transportation to turn back a portion of Deep Well Ranch Road to the city of Prescott for long-term maintenance without meeting the 4-year advance notice of abandonment and pavement quality report requirement. So this road that we are discussing so this is State Route 89 in this route. This is the Deep Well Ranch roundabout that's just north of the airport area. And then Deep Well Ranch Road is this orangey colored piece. That is the segment that we're talking about right there. This segment of road was kind of the first domino in regards to ADOT projects in the area. So when ADOT started planning the State Route 89 widening between Chino Valley and this roundabout, then this roadway was included into that discussion, that planning. That also then had the forethought that they knew right behind this project was the widening south of this roundabout from Deep Well Ranch roundabout down to State Route 89A. during that road widening project, the latest project that was just completed, they knew there'd be significant impacts to the airport area, both here on McCurdy as well as Ruger. So that's why when they did the project Come From Chino, then this segment of the roadway was included in that project also. So that road was built by ADOT for the city with the plans of the future impacts for the other widening project. So now we're at the point of the city desires to accept the portion of the Deepwell Ranch Road from the roundabout over to Ruger Road. By the street was a new build addition to the airport area and the State Route 89 project. And ultimately, the ownership of the segment will improve the city's ability to manage the roadway development and benefit the airport terminal access. When this roadway was completed in 2015, the turnover was supposed to follow through and be done at that time. At this point now, it's a matter of housekeeping. We were not aware that this did not happen until just recently in February when a permit for development right in this area came up, and that's when it came out that it was still in ADOT's jurisdiction and ownership, the right-of-way. So that's what kind of started this next domino in order to solve this. As part of ARS, then being that it did not happen back when the roadway was constructed via like an IGA, then the next requirement is that by doing the waiver, then the waiver would allow us to take care of this requirement, which is the standard requirement that the ADOT is to provide 4 years advance notice to the effective jurisdictions, except as provided in paragraph 3, and accept that by mutual agreement, the board and the effective jurisdiction may waive this requirement for notification. Part of that notification also then is the matter of a pavement condition assessment. And again, this was supposed to have been completed back in 2015 when it was originally built for us.
So I have a question,
Yes, sir.
if I may, Mayor.
Yeah.
So all the conditions, and I know what the answer is, but it needs to be publicly stated, all the conditions of that road improvement that was done by Arizona Department of Transportation through a contract meets all the city's standards and requirements, does it not?
Yes.
So what's the issue? Or is there one?
Not an issue. This is a matter of following state statute
Okay.
to follow the correct protocol in order to consider accepting the roadway.
And I'm quite sure there's less hoops to jump through when it comes to commercial properties abutting that road surface with the city of Prescott opposed to the state of Arizona.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Currently being under, and that's what came up in February, being that it is ADOT right-of-way, when a permit request came up to be able to install utilities in there, ADOT says, no, you cannot cut that roadway, it has to be bored. So one utility has been installed using boring, but there are a number of other utilities that still have to be installed in there. So that is part of this as well. Then in our discussions and permit reviews of design plans, we're considering the ability that it would be able to be cut to install the multiple utilities, but then we would have the requirement that it would have to be like a mill and overlay or just an overlay in order to reestablish the condition of the roadway as part of that development.
I guess what I would ask for, and just because it is a new road surface, can we reach out to the developer to put in all connections at one time so that we don't have ongoing road cuts in that facility? I mean, it seems like we always wait until development happens to do those road cuts. It would make more sense to do them all at once and then do a mill and overlay so we don't have all those cuts to have patched out there and end up being potholes.
Agree wholeheartedly. And in regards to the utilities, yes, I believe we can do that. In regards to other improvements that will need to come to in relationship to development, we will not be able to foresee all of those and plan for all of those. And I've got additional information on that. And yet part of the state statute then is the matter of abandonment shall be in such a condition that additional surface treatment and major maintenance of the highway are not required for at least 5 years. The existing condition out there today, it's due for like crack sealing, but it does not meet or exceed either of those items that are in there.
So, Craig, just to ask another question after what Councilman Blair said is, we should have done this in 2015. This was built to our standards, and at that time, the condition of the roadway was such that there would have been no issue had we done our job transferring this in 2015.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Councilmember Rusing, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Craig, I have a few questions. Did you get my email? I had sent some. I went out there yesterday and took some pictures. Did you?
I did, and can I continue with a few more pieces here, and then I'd be happy to answer your questions?
Thank you.
Okay. So as we all know, it does not look like this out there today anymore. This entire hill is gone. This is all a pad for commercial development. This hole over here is all new raised pad and drainage improvements. So it continues to evolve every year, if not even month. As I mentioned before, so when the widening was going to be done in here, then it would have had significant impacts on McCurdy and Ruger Road during that construction. So that's why this was built in order to create that alternative access into the airport area, which made a huge difference for airport operations during the construction of this lower segment. So now, as we've already talked about, yes, utilities, we can plan, they are designed, we should be able to get them installed so those major pieces are in there that do not have to create cuts across there long term. Now, when it comes to pre-planning all the ingress, egress, and potential development, we can't foresee all of that. So we're going to have to work on those as they come in, as in just recently, we just reviewed a project that's being proposed out there, and is being proposed just on the northeast corner of the Deepwell Ranch roundabout and this roadway that we're talking about right now. So as part of our review and return comments towards that project, then that's where we called out that curb and gutter and sidewalk would have to be part of that development to create that improvement along there, as well as the existing intersection, or it's not an intersection existing, the existing corner of Deepwell Ranch Road is simply just the 90 right here. Long term, Deepwell Ranch Road is going to continue going to the east out into Deepwell Ranch, and then is proposed ultimately to curve and go to the north up to the Yavapai medical area. So as part of this project we just reviewed, then we supplied these improvement requirements with that, including the addition of the T intersection, which would just be blocked off like here for now, but it would establish that T intersection and not create the need to have to go back and tear out improvements here in the next year or so. So that's how the individual developments will come into play on this segment to add those additional benefits to the area. I think with that I've covered a lot of things, and I'd be happy to go back to council members.
Yeah, Councilmember Rusing.
Questions.
First of all, I'd like to reinforce that I totally support our airport projects, our runway expansion, our terminal. Robin's doing a fabulous job. It's a great potential as an economic driver out there. I support all the private property owners who might potentially put in commercial, industrial, manufacturing. And I must say, I went out there yesterday and I was extremely concerned as to what I found. If you wouldn't mind putting the previous map up of the project there. First of all, right here, first of all, the whole road is just one lane going in and out. And it's basically the same size as the old road that went into the airport on McCurdy Drive. And as I understand, this is going to be our new main entrance to our new terminal, right? And I'm concerned that we're going to have a new terminal and our road is not going to be able to serve all the traffic, because this road's only 5 years old and it still has this dangerous curve, which we've spent a lot of time and effort trying to straighten out and fix. This one, we've already had one serious accident where a double tractor trailer laid over on its side. And here we've got the same curve right here that's actually, the radius looks like it was a little tighter to me. And only being one lane, if there's an accident, it could shut down the whole road. When it was designed 5 years ago by ADOT, I just don't see any improvement in planning there, and I'm concerned that we have here it bottlenecks down, and there's a kind of a weird swerve where it junctions with the roundabout, and I am just totally concerned with our liability. And I took pictures. It definitely looks like all the concrete is asphalt is failing due to water damage. It definitely needs more than just crack seal. It needs sidewalks, curbs, guttering, drainage. I see it's going to be very difficult to have egress and ingress with this curve here to the private properties. You mentioned, a pavement assessment, and it looks like all the pavement is failing. And I'm just very concerned. And do you have any cost estimates as to how much it's going to cost to bring this road up to what it should be as a gateway to our beautiful airport?
And absolutely, several of the things that you mentioned there, like back to this picture. So the curve that you were just mentioning is right here. That's the existing roadway. So as this project just came in for review, then our direction to them that in regards to that project going forward, these are the improvements that project will need to do to that segment of the road in order to improve it to the needs along there. So that's when the curb and gutter will come in, and then that's where we are requesting that the T intersection be established. So then that will essentially replace the 90-degree curve that's there currently, and it'll be the T intersection. Now, part of that discussion has been not to just make it into a straight T intersection, so that inbound traffic coming from the roundabout, so that they would have to go up there and stop and or make a very sharp right-hand turn onto the roadway. It'd be to maintain the curve on the inside so that it can be like the primary slip lane access to continue right on going into the airport. And then the outbound traffic would be coming up and potentially stop sign here, and then would go out onto that where Depot Ranch Road will long-term will be the primary roadway. But yet there's the ability to have that slip lane going around with a yield only to go into the airport and not have to stop at that intersection then. And the major drainage components have been put out there as far as the lot development, major drainage trenches and things like that. Drainage on the roadway, that again will be added as development goes, because then there's another parcel here, there's another parcel here, there's parcel on the other side, there's at least 2 more next to this parcel and or behind it. So there are several more parcels there, and then as they come, that will trigger those improvements for that ingress, egress, curb gutter, sidewalk, landscaping, and such.
Well, Craig, I just have a bad feeling about this road. It looks like it's already gonna underserve the area, and I just feel it should have been 4 lanes with a median and straighter and just designed much better. And once again, we're going to have something, we're going to accept something, I think, that was poorly designed, and then we're going to spend millions of dollars trying to fix it. So I'm just making my comments, and I just worry about our legal liability accepting something like this with that curve, trying to fix that. It only looks like it's 60 feet wide. Is how wide is this road with just the 2 single lanes?
Those lanes are going to be at least 12-foot lanes each, and with the center lane, so we're going to be in the range of 36 to 40 feet of asphalt right there.
Total? So it's almost like the size of a residential street, and I just feel that this is the whole thing is just a bad design. Sorry. And it's not our fault, but we're going to be accepting something that was designed poorly from the beginning.
Counselor?
Did you want me to address the liability
Yes,
portion?
thank you.
Yeah, I guess it's a question for Craig, is whether the initial project met generally acceptable engineering standards, which I assume it did, and if it did, liability would be pretty low regarding and accepting that. And statutorily, I think Craig walked you through the process pretty well, that we do have to take some sort of affirmative action to accept the roadway and give up those other protections that we'd normally be granted. So that's kind of why we're doing it this way with the waiver of the statutory requirements. But to the extent the roadway met engineering standards, liability on claims will be fairly low.
Well, the alternative here is you could demand that they do something, but because we didn't take action in 2015, it's not likely, would it be, Matt, that they would agree to anything, right? I mean,
And the entire construction has been done, was done
don't have
by
any-
ADOT for the city.
right, we don't have any leverage.
Correct.
Councilman Good?
Well, I don't know at the time when we designed the terminal that we took into consideration that this would be one of the primary access points to the new terminal. McCurdy, I think, will stop where that taxiway is going to allow those T hangars. Is it shade hangars? Right. So therefore, if you're coming northbound on 89, you probably would make a right at Ruger to access the terminal. But if you're going northbound, you would be taking this from, I think it's going to be Airport Avenue, or and then it'll turn into this James or Deepwell Road. But it looks like the way you're designing it, it's more of a typical access to a small commercial area, when in fact this is going to be a pretty high volume traffic entry into the airport and exit into the airport. I agree with Councilmember Rusing that we need to, as a city, reconsider the volume of traffic so that we don't get landlocked here with a single lane in each direction and a potential stop sign. I mean, the projections that we had before this, the debacle in our air enplanements at the airport were very substantial, and the traffic that would be supporting those passengers absolutely has to be in consideration of entrance and exit to the airport terminal. I mean, we've already felt that the terminal, once it's opened, is going to be almost at capacity as it is.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
So how are we going to deal with the future? We're going to have to turn around and try to condemn parts of those rights of way so that we can expand. I mean, the time to expand it is now.
And that's where the review comes in. Every time there's a development considered along here, for instance, like the one that we just reviewed, that's where we're requiring that a left turn lane be
That's not
installed
enough.
for that.
That's not enough.
And
This has
then-
to be substantially bigger, as 2 lanes in each direction, and not delaying traffic entrance or exit with this T intersection proposal. I've never seen this before.
Never seen this before. What's that?
What this? I mean, this development, addition, and not being able to widen the roadway as a expectation that this is going to be a major entry into the terminal.
And no one has made any statements that says the roadway will not be able to be widened or can't be widened.
So what's the capacity of how many vehicles per day can pass that turn with a development, etc.? Without, how is that designed to handle this type of capacity?
The traffic control, the TIA, traffic impact analysis, will address that for us so we can go back and review and see what was in there. For the roadway configuration, as far as the size of the roadway there, it's that existing configuration is essentially the same as what we have going through the Dells.
And we know we're going to be at capacity at that very soon.
And that 2-lane configuration, they list, is capable of handling 18,000 cars a day.
Right, and we're over 15,000 cars a day right now.
Yes, sir.
Right.
I just ran. Are you thinking? Sorry, Robin, to put you on the spot. Talking about, I ran 50,000 employments for the year. So I came up with 137 per day for 365 days a year. Can you speak to employments a little bit, if it's
Yeah.
appropriate?
Thanks, Robin.
I want to, before she gets here, if I can, Mayor, I want to know what the right-of-way, Craig, what is the right-of-way there right now?
I have that.
Granted, it's not built out to the full right-of-way, but we've always been under the notion in the city of Prescott, I'm not a traffic engineer and don't purport to be one, but the bottom line to it is we've always expected development to pay for development, not on the city's hoof. So I guess what my problem is in listening to Councilman Good and Councilman Rusing is we're wanting to design a Taj Mahal at city dollars prior to there being the demand to do so, and that the construction of the commercial zones would pay for that. Isn't that the way we operate in the city of Prescott?
Correct. And that's what is, for instance, on Willow Creek Road, that's what's triggering the widening right now that we just discussed at the last meeting.
So my question is the widening there to accommodate what we need to do at the airport?
Is the ability to widen it there?
Yes, sir.
And I have, this is the survey information for the right-of-way there. I'm not sure if I can pull off there instantly the width of that right-of-way.
Mayor, if I could just make a comment real quick.
Yeah.
I think we're getting a little bit off track of what this item is. To make any changes that we're talking about, we have to accept this road. And I think that we need to move forward on accepting this road. And I don't think that we can hold ADOT to standards now that when we were going to accept this road when it was brand new. To turn around and say our oversight requires you to make improvements is just not the intention of this item and was not the intention at the time. I think we just need to move forward, accept the road, and then at a different time we can talk about the design of this road and what that looks like for the future of our airport.
Councilman Sishka.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I really appreciate Councilmember Rusing and Councilman Good's addition to the conversation. But I think that we're talking about a totally different animal here. When you talked about the 100 and some odd people that would come in who were going to add to 50,000 employments, well, up hopefully 200, 300. That is a far cry from 15,000. And so I think that while we need to always be cognizant of, you know, are we really going to need to improve this roadway so that we don't end up with a situation where we're piling cars upon cars? There's a lot of leeway there between 300 or 400 even and 15,000. So I think that we're getting way off the reservation with this kind of conversation right now.
Councilmember Rusing.
I'd just like to point out that this road's only 5 years old. It's had hardly any traffic on it, and it looks like it's failing. It's dangerous with the curve, poorly designed, and I just think that as a exercising my fiduciary duty to the taxpayers and the citizens, I don't see why we don't table this and then go back to ADOT and see what we can do to get them to help straighten this out, because to me it's totally unacceptable. Because I don't know, maybe Robin can ask this question. We get fuel deliveries, diesel fuel deliveries. Is this road going to also be used for deliveries, or is there going to be an alternate road into the airport? There's going to be an alternate. Thank you.
I just don't understand what the alternative is, though. If we don't accept this road, we then don't have control over the entrance to our own airport, and it stays in ADOT control and likely doesn't receive.
Just temporarily delay it till we.
I'm not willing to do that. We had an ADOT engineers that engineered the road. So I'm not an engineer, and I'm not going to step all over ADOT to say they did a poor job. Based upon 5 years ago, they did exactly what they were supposed to do as qualified engineers and built it. So we're here to accept it, and I'm willing to do that.
Councilman Good.
Yeah, I don't want to be misunderstood here. I'm looking a little farther down the road. This particular issue is to accept the road the way it is so that we then have the ability to pre-plan some of these additional concerns. I think ADOT put this in originally when they were planning their expansion and widening of 89 to be able to relieve the pressure on McCurdy and Ruger, et cetera. So this was planned way before we came up with the plan for the terminal. So let's go ahead and accept this. Yes, by accepting it, we now can have Public Works design some of these contingencies in the future. So I'm not saying let's not accept this. I think we have to at this point.
Yep.
And then we can debate about how these plans for this particular development and future developments would constrain this road widening. That's a future issue.
That's correct.
So I don't have an objection to accepting this at this point, but I think we need to be on the record that we need to really look at some of these additional commercial plans in here to make sure that we have adequate ability to deal with future traffic volume.
And I don't have a button, Mayor, but I would say, Craig, because you don't have it here, and I understand why, because I ask things most often that are not on the limelight, but the actual footprint of the city's right-of-way for that road I would like to know what that is, number one, and further, in future discussions. And number two, legally, what we're allowed to ask the property owners that abut to it as it is today, because they have the right, they have the property, but we also have a right as a city to ask them for ingress, egress, and turning lanes and those types of things for their development. So I think that big picture that we're talking about, and Councilman Good alluded to it, that overall picture is going to be important for the further development of the airport into the future. But based upon what we're being asked to do today, we need to accept the roadway as it is and then move forward with the future.
That's right. And I think the fiduciary responsibility that we have would be to make sure we have the ability to expand and then to put it on the backs of the developers at the time that we need it and not expect the city taxpayer to pay for it prematurely. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a comment on this?
She's still there.
Agree with you. I think we need to go ahead and move on this and then reconsider for the future. So I certainly wouldn't want to hold this up.
Okay. Any public comment?
No, Mayor.
Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 2020-1741.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Let's take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr? And Mayor Mangarelli.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you, Craig. Let's move on to item G.
Adoption of ordinance number 2020-1714. An ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, authorizing the acceptance of a public water, sewer, and drainage easement agreement from Creekview Housing LLC and authorizing the mayor and staff to execute any and all documents to effectuate said acceptance.
Okay, next up, Mayor. So the easements here that we're discussing were associated with development agreement that the city joined into with Creekview Housing LLC. And there we go, 2018, we entered into that. So as part of that development agreement, then it allowed us to go forward with our Sundog Trunk Main Phase C, the first phase of it, which went through the property here as well. So we are, these are the apartments on Miller Valley Road, right next to McDonald's, across from CVS Pharmacy, is where we're at. So with that DA, then we were able to cooperate and have that trunk main installed through there, so that then after that project was completed, we didn't have to go back in there and tear it up. It also then included where they did water improvements within Miller Valley Road to service their needs, as well as it benefits our system going forward for improvements that we will do in Miller Valley Road in the future. And it also established a improved and upsized drainage system from Miller Valley Road across the parcel to Miller Creek. So this is to get approval and acceptance of the easements across their parcel. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments from the council? Mayor Pro Tem, anything? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 2020-1714.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you have a comment?
No, I didn't, Mayor. Time delay.
Gotcha. Okay. Motion and second. Let's take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr? And Mayor Mangarelli.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Okay. Let's move on to item H, please.
Approval of city...
We'll get into our microphones here a little better. Thank you.
Approval of city contract number 2020-175 with Hinton Burdick CPAs and Advisors for independent financial statement audit and other required financial reports for fiscal years 2020 through 2022.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mark Woodfill, Budget and Finance Director. The city charter requires us to change auditors every 3 years. State law and city charter, of course, requires us to have audits. We went out through a selection process. We had 4 proposals submitted. They were evaluated on several criteria. Hinton Burdick was selected. They're not a huge firm, but they do similar audits for other communities. The total contract for all 3 years for the annual audit, the single audit, which is, of course, critical for all of our grants, including the airport, as well as the impact fee biannual audits, is $118,750. That's about a 3% increase from our prior contract, and we were able to maintain that small increase by through the refunding that we did of the Hacienda bonds a few years ago. We were able to remove an additional financial statement audit, which really wasn't that useful, but of course we were getting charged for it. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any more detailed questions if council has them.
Questions, comments from the council?
Mayor? Mark, I was just curious, what other municipalities in Arizona has this CPA firm worked with?
They've worked with many, El Mirage, Page, City of Page, City of Williams, Carefree, Litchfield Park, several cities about our size, or even smaller, some a little bigger. The fund makeup of the cities they've worked with is similar to ours, meaning they offer the same levels of service, airports, golf courses, that type of stuff. And they achieved all the requirements of the proposal as far as professional.
They had similar standing as their primary auditing firm for a 3-year period?
Yeah, 3 or more. Well, one was 2, but yeah, they do it for multiple years. A lot of cities aren't required to change every 3 years. If we ever do get around to a charter election again, we may want to consider pushing that to a 5-year rotation.
All right, thank you.
Other questions, comments, or public comment?
No public comment.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2020-175.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr? And Mayor Mangarelli.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, let's move on to item I, please.
Approval of city contract number 2017-291A3. An amendment to city contract number 2017-291 with Traffic Safety, Inc.
And I would like to recuse on this one. My son works for traffic safety. And if it's all right, Mayor Pro Tem, I will ask our senior member here, Councilman Blair, to call the vote on this one.
Senior meeting age.
You've been here the longest, yes.
Hello again.
Be glad to do it.
So Mark and I will just keep.
I don't think it is.
Mark and I will just continue trading off here. So this item is and if I could also, some of my teammates were trying to help me out electronically, and were letting me know via my pocket that the right of way is 100 foot out on Deepwell Ranch Road, and the culverts are about 150 feet long. So we have significant right of way there for any expansion.
So, if I may, Mayor, or I guess I'm here. Okay. That would, with 100 feet, that would be the max of how many lanes both ways?
That would be able to maintain 5 lanes if that's what we
So 2 lanes each way and a center turn lane? Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this item is approval of to increase the funding for the annual pavement marking contract in FY20 from $150,000 to $300,000. So ultimately, we are not asking to spend another $150,000. It is the matter that, so this contract, we primarily do our bulk striping contract in the spring each year. After we get done with snow plowing, cinders, chains, studded tires, everything like that, that deteriorate our striping. So we have a large contract, it's done in the spring. We generally will get one invoice from the contractor. I can't say why, but when we received our invoice last year for the work that we did in the spring of 2019, we received the invoice in July, and it could have been paid out of FY19. However, it was paid out of FY20. So essentially, the day we started FY20, our funds were already used up from the work that we did in 19. So that's what this increase is asking for. In there. So this contract has gone over a number of years from when we had the initial bid. Then there was the ability to extend it over 3 more one-year periods. That has been done. And then we also brought it to you for the approval of the funding mechanism for FY19, 20, and 21. So today is to have the ability for us to do the striping here in the next several months before the end of the fiscal year and pay it in FY20 as well.
Okay, Mr. Good
Thank you
put
very
his
much.
finger out there, so
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem.
old guy.
Thank you. I was just curious how this occurred. If this is an experienced contractor, knowing that they have to submit their invoice within the fiscal year that it's funded for, was it an error on the part of our accounting in paying it from the wrong fiscal year fund, or is it just an error in the contractor's submission of their full work that is typically done after after we finish our late April rains and snow?
I would probably share the responsibility all the way around. The contractor definitely could be a little more timely on the invoice submission. However, we did receive the invoice in July. So then on our part, on the Public Works part, it may have been part of how we coded it and what year we put down, as well as, sharing a little bit of it with finance too. Maybe there's some there as well. But yeah, we all would have a part in it being paid out of 20 versus 19 like it should
There's
have.
no question that the work was done.
Nope.
And it was done to our standards, and it was inspected, and they're due this this payment.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is what you're approving is for us to have the ability to spend $300,000 within FY20,
Right.
so that we can hire them to do the striping between now and the end of the fiscal year. Otherwise, we'd have to go on like we have right now with little to no striping out there in many locations.
Yeah, and boy, do we need it. I've heard a lot of personal calls from different residents in the city that some of the striping is just completely gone. So, yeah, I was just curious why an experienced vendor wouldn't submit in time and know that they needed to be able to get the proper reimbursement. So,
Anybody else with a question? Yes, Ms. Rusi.
As you know, striping has been a big issue here in town. So this, no disrespect to the mayor and his son, but this company, Traffic Safety, they've been doing the striping for the last 3 years, as I understand.
They have done it for many, many years.
And what is exactly their scope of work? Does it include our crosswalks for all the schools, the faith-based, the public, and the private schools? Because it's terrible. None of them can get a crosswalk done. Their crosswalks are like you could barely see them. Are we responsible for doing the crosswalks for the schools? Is that part of the scope of work for this company?
If they exist out there on the street, yes, they should be renewed. And that very well can be part of the deterioration that we have throughout the winters. They are putting down the type of paint, the amount of paint that we've had in our contract that we put out. However, we've been reviewing that and looking at a couple other products. I'll call it paint is what we have in our current contract that they bid on. We are exploring ideas of thermoplastic as well as epoxies to have the ability to potentially get a longer longevity out of it and a better visibility from it. So we've already started the process to consider that for the next time we put it out to bid to consider using different product. And we have a company that's actually offered to come and redo the scramble in one of those products so then we can watch the longevity of it and how it works for us.
Well, I just wanted to ask, going back to the crosswalks, are we going to get a commitment from them to do all the crosswalks so they're ready to go by fall, or actually August, when school is back in session? And I'd also like to know why we don't switch to the safety yellow and the zebra striping, which seems to be the standard in other communities for the crosswalks of the not only just the school zones, but just crosswalks in general. Because as you know, not just locally, but nationally, pedestrian accidents and deaths are on the uprise for many various reasons.
Okay, so yes, in regards to reestablishing them, our work will be done prior to the end of the fiscal year. So then those would be done as part of that. And then in regards to the zebra striping, I will have to go back and get with staff to check into MUTCD requirements, standards, and that whether that's something that can be considered or not.
So are we extending this contract? It'll be for another year, or we're just reimbursing them for last year's work that was already done?
What you're considering is to allow us as Public Works to hire them to do FY20 striping. So you are reestablishing FY20 funds because the 20 funds were used for the work that was done in 19.
And is there a performance-based clause in this contract in case we're not happy? Do we have some avenues to make it right?
We've not had any performance issues with them in regards to the product they're putting down, the type of material, the amount of material, anything like that. They are putting down what was previously bid. What I said, we're going to look at different material opportunities going forward that maybe can give us a better service life and better visibility.
Okay, thank you.
Just one positive comment with this company. I know that during the fact of COVID-19 and the change of the ingress-egress at YRMC, that this very company got out there on a minute's notice and changed the crosswalks on Division Street, as well as redoing the crosswalks on Willow Creek Road and refreshing the crosswalks at 4 Points intersection. So I think they have been fairly responsive when we hold their feet to the fire to do so.
And as you mentioned, they came out there on a moment's notice to help with the situation at that intersection.
And I think they put a different coating down the vinyl on these as well. So, any other comments?
I have a quick question. Craig, how is their work determined? So is it assigned by someone on your staff and then they respond to those calls, or how does it work?
Yes, Ian Mattingly, our traffic engineer, is primary organizer of the work that they do. And they come in and they'll focus on long line, we'll call it. So all the streets, just go in with the truck down the long lines. They'll come in and do those. Then they'll come in and work on stop bars. So they do it in pieces like that. So they gear up for each individual item. That way they are the most efficient at what they're doing each time. So you'll see something happen in one place, but the stop bars won't be done. so they'll follow later. And then maybe the school crossings will follow later in another piece where they'll come and do all of those.
Okay. Any other questions? Any public comment?
Councilman Blair, I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Councilman Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that Ian Mattingly and Craig Dockett have been so responsive to the pedestrian bicycle traffic committee with regard to the striking that we have asked them to do. We've had several individuals come in to the city, and they will actually give an honor. They will ask for particular striking and crosswalks, and so we can do the investigation on it, or the city does. It's just been, I believe, a great addition to the city as far as having a separate committee look at these things. And Craig, you and Ian have just said,
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Any other comments? Public comment?
No.
Okay. Any motion, please?
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2017-291A3.
Second.
Okay, I call for your vote.
Councilman Blair?
Here, yes. I'm confused.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
absolutely.
Thank you. Passes 6-0.
I tried, Mayor.
Did a good job. Let's move on to item J, please.
Approval of city contract number 2020-179 with Asphalt Paving and Supply, Inc. and city contract number 2020-180 to Vulcan Materials Company in an amount not to exceed $3,000 each annually.
Okay, next up. So, as we are doing work throughout streets, water, wastewater, on a regular basis, we're in the need to purchase materials like concrete, rock, ABC, landscape materials, riprap, all those materials on a regular basis. So these proposed contracts were solicited for, put out to the community, and we received information back from both of these companies. Ultimately, there are 34 items that were on the bid. We know that every company is not able to bid on each of those, so we go into it with the plan that there will be multiple contracts in order to allow the opportunity to have as many of the materials available to us as possible, as well as the flexibility that if a certain supplier is not able to supply something when we need it, we can go to another. But we will primarily start with the lower bid price on the contract and only go to the other when it's not available or they're not able to supply us. So that's why we're requesting the two contracts then with Asphalt Paving and Supply and Vulcan Materials to support streets, water, and wastewater throughout the year. That I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments from the council? Public comment?
No, Mayor.
Entertain a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2020-179.
Second.
Motion is second. Let's take a vote.
Is there another contract number there as well, though?
I have it listed as two separate motions, so we'll do the first one for 179.
Second.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
And Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2020-180.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischka?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr? And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Okay. Let's move on to item K, please.
Approval of city contract number 2018-201A2, an amendment to city contract number 2018-201 with Fan Environmental LLC for Phase 3 of the Design Build Airport Well Number 5 Improvement Project.
Hello again, Mayor, Council. This is my last one, I believe. Promise. So, in the words of my cohort, Eric Bay, this is one of those exciting projects. So this is a project that has the ability to continue to help our community in regards to keeping people working from a local contractor. This project will bring into play another well of significant capacity in the airport area to bring in redundancy for our very large producer in Chino Valley. This project brings more production capability into the airport area. So here on the exhibit, what we're talking about right now is airport well number 5, which is, so here's the airport runway. So we are up at the very north end of it, just south of the APS solar site that's way out there in the ranch. So this project has been a design build project, which is a little different delivery method than our normal projects where we would do design, bid, build. So under that design build concept then, we put out for proposals under phase 1, requested proposals from design build teams to consider this project. All of those proposals then were reviewed, scored, rated, and then there was interviews with that to initiate the phase 1 part of the project. So once we had the team on board, then phase 1 was initiated and we brought forward to you all for approval there. So that was the design for the drilling of the well. The well was drilled and ultimately came out to be an excellent well. If we would have went forward under design, bid, build, we would have had the anticipation that we would get a well of about 1,000 gallons a minute in this area. The whole entire project would have been designed, predicated on 1,000 gallons a minute. When we actually drilled this well and started checking the water quality, which came back excellent, and the quantity, it's actually rated at 2,500 gallons a minute. So more than 2 times what we would have gotten out of the anticipated complete design, bid, build project. So this method has been very valuable on this project. So after we completed the drilling of it, found out that information, then we did the actual construction of the well in there. Now we have done the design based on that 2,500 gallons a minute. So all the piping, the power, the motor, the pump, everything is designed to that higher capacity in that area. So now we're bringing forward phase 3 to actually construct the well facility, the building, pumps, water piping. So this is the site of our well. The water piping, we actually have to bring it all the way down and connect it into the existing system down in this vicinity. And then another added component of this, the red line on the exhibit here is where we have to go to get power. This site over here is actually our airport well number 3 site, and we had previously brought power to it when we completed that. So now we have over 7,000 feet of electrical conduit and wire that has to be brought to this site. So that's part of this as well. No pun intended. Has the 18-inch water connection. We're also including a standby generator that will be at this site, being that it is out here so far remote, and this airport area is very active when it comes to lightning. The airport water reclamation facility experiences power issues or challenges each year associated with lightning. So that's where we're including the emergency generator for this site as well. Also that it is such a large producer, for it to be the backup for that large well in Chino Valley, we wanted it to have the highest probability of being able to serve us. SCADA system upgrades and access will already also be part of it, as well as the roadway to the site. We will initially, there is existing roadway along the old railroad bedway, and then we have to build a short portion of access road into it, but we're not going to go to any large extent on improving that because we know that there's the vision for the airport runway extension here that will come down in there. So we're not going to build improvements that will just go away when that extension comes about. And long term, the primary access for this site may very well be off the end of Ruger Road. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Blair.
I love water. I'm like Eric Bay. It excites me, but I have so many questions. I'm not sure I want to ask them all here. However, I will ask the question and the fact that knowing our well field is in Chino Valley, geographically, is our water well field also associated with this? And what I mean by that, when you start talking about the aquifer and you start talking about spreading the pump zones apart, do you suspect by using this quality pump that we'll have here at 2,500 feet or per minute, do you suspect that to take pressure off the Chino Valley water table in general, where they have individual wells out there?
These wells in this area come into play also with a request by ADWR back in about 2005 for us to establish more production capability closer vicinity to the recharge facility.
Yeah,
and
point
that
that out.
actually is on the lower portion. So these are our recharge basins here around the airport water reclamation facility. So this is part of that to create that additional capacity here to reduce the amount that we would be pumping in Chino Valley. So we would be pumping closer to that recharge facility.
So overall, that's a positive for our neighbors out in Chino.
Yes.
Okay. And also, knowing that to be the case, how do you put in the equipment for us for the different things that we need to do to pull out of this well? Like out in Chino Valley, we put in the arsenic abatement and all those different things. Are this contract anticipate doing the same thing here on this well?
That was checked in phase one with the drilling. The water quality came back on this extremely well. I want to say arsenic was around 3 or 4.
So
the
we
limit
won't,
is 10.
So we won't have to test that.
We will not have to include any arsenic treatment in it.
And the last question, because I have many more, but the last one in particular is how do you infuse this pump situation into the gravity flow that we have from Chino Valley? How do you migrate the two so there's not a backflow?
This well will tie into what we call Zone 12. Zone 12 is the whole airport area. So when this well's running, it will be pumping into the distribution system. It will feed direct demand as it's going through the distribution system, but then it will also fill the storage tank that's over in Granite Dells Estates.
Okay.
So when the tank lowers, it calls for the well to come on. It will come on. It will feed demand, refill the tank. When the tank's full, the well will go back off, and the tank will serve everybody via gravity.
What a beautiful thing. Thank you.
Yeah, what a great producing well, and it's a great location because of the proximity to the recharge field, so that's very good.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Rusing?
Thank you, Mayor. Craig, how deep is this well? How many feet?
It was almost 1,000 feet.
Wow, 1,000 feet. And how many acre feet per year are we going to get from that well?
I'm only hesitating. I forget if we permitted at the entire 2,500 gallons a minute, or if we permitted a little bit lower than that, but it's very close to the 2,500 gallons a minute. The well is rated at the 2,500 gallons a minute.
No, I mean acre feet per year.
Then it would calculate into that. We are not going to put a pump in it that's going to tax it at the maximum rating. We're putting a pump in that's 2,100 gallons a minute. So I don't absolutely remember if we permitted it at 2,500 or the 2,100. The 2,100. No, I'm doing.
You didn't bring your slide ruler?
You have the answer if you had a slide rule.
That's right.
Okay, it's permitted at 2,500 gallons a minute. Okay, Eric, how many acre feet a year is that?
I'm good at 2,500 gallons a minute, but
Yeah, I don't have the acre feet. And ultimately, it's a matter of permitting the wells so they have the potential to pump at that rate. But the amount that we pump will still only be equal to the demand of the water system. So just because we add this well in that will be capable of the 2,100 gallons a minute doesn't mean that we're going to pump any more per year. It's just that we will pump it from a different location.
Craig, I figured it out. It's 4,000 acre feet.
Would be the permitted capability. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
did you have another comment, Councilman Sischke? Do you have a comment on this one?
No. I don't.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the council? Mayor Pro Tem? Public?
Mayor, I think this is just going to be a project we look forward to opening up and generating.
Okay, public comment?
No, Mayor.
Entertain a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2018-201A2.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Let's take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischke?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr?
Yes.
Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Okay. Item L, please.
Acceptance of hazardous fuels mitigation funding in the amount of $124,164 from the State of Arizona Division of Fire and Forest Management as part of the Wildfire Hazardous Fuels Grant Program.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, Dennis Light, Fire Chief, City of Prescott. This is commonly referred to as the 90-10 grant. Each year we apply for a number of them. The state provides us about 90% of the funding to the tune of $124,164 with a city match of $13,796. This is to treat areas in the Foothill subdivision and property adjacent to and immediately part of Acker Park and a number of other open space areas. Project scope's about just under 57 acres of both private and common areas within those subdivisions. We expect to eliminate about 70% of the fuel loading through this, and it also benefits the other Firewise communities of Juniper Heights, Quail Hollow, Hidden Valley, Hazley Homestead, and the Ranch of Prescott, as well as Yavapai Hills. And with that, I'd entertain any questions that you might have.
Okay. Questions, comments from the council?
God bless us.
Any public comment?
No, Mayor.
Entertain a motion?
Mayor, I move to accept hazardous fuels mitigation funding through the Wildfire Hazardous Fuels Grant Program from the State of Arizona Division of Fire and Forest Management.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Let's take a vote.
Councilman Blair?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilmember Roosing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scholl?
Yes.
Councilman Sischke?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr? And Mayor Mangarelli?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
All right. Thank you, Chief. I think that concludes our business for the day. This quote comes from Brooklyn Mingarelli, May of 2017, from her baccalaureate speech. Start putting God first in your life right now. Don't wait and say in college I'll take my life seriously, or once I get my first job and settle down I'll take my life seriously, or when I'm married, or when I have a family, or when I'm retired and have more time. If you keep pushing off your faith until tomorrow, tomorrow will never come. This meeting is adjourned.
Amen.
All right. right, Brooklyn.
Eyes beyond years.
Yes.